So, good morning, everyone, and we are delighted to have you here this Saturday morning for the Shenomics Mentoring Circle on Conscious Networking. I am Charu. How many of you already know me because you're regulars at the Shenomics Mentoring Circle. I'm a consultant with Shenomics, and I work on some of their programs as well as the mentoring circle. And today's mentoring circle again is on a very relevant topic and a relevant skill that many of us are told that whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, or you have a high flying career, or you just want to take it pretty slow, networking is a very important skill. And today, as I was like really thinking about this topic, I was just thinking in my long and short career span, compared to the number of you here. So let's keep guessing about my age. But I was just thinking about how even networking has really changed over the years for me itself. I remember very early in my career, I was sent by my manager because I was in PR. So obviously, being out there was a very big thing, whether it was for the media or to get new clients. And after these very prestigious industry events, there used to actually be called a session called the networking session with snacks and cocktails, right? So, you know, when you're very young, also into the workforce, if you're chosen to go for one of these events, it feels very prestigious and you feel like you're the one. So I remember going for my first event, and my boss said, make sure you mix around and you get as many business cards as you can get. And that's exactly what I did. So when I came back from the event the next morning, she said, how did it go? I showed her these many business cards and said, see, I did my job really well. I went around, collected all these business cards. And she's like, cool. And what are you going to do with it? And I'm like, I don't know. We figure it out. Right. And trust me, I never did anything with those business cards. Just a raise of hands, how many of you remember going to those events where you gave out those business cards and collected business cards? Yeah, you can even show me in your reactions. Yeah. Yeah. Can we have you guys on mute? Rubina, Dina, can I have you on mute, please? Yes. All right. Can we have everybody on mute? Yeah. So we've all been through that, right? And then of course, as the years went by, a lot of the networking started happening, not just at these events, but it was pretty much wherever you went. And then slowly the paradigm of networking changed, even with the coming of Orkut. Does anyone remember Orkut? I'm just really testing what's the age. Yes, everybody. Yes, all right. Orkut was really the old days of networking, right? And then, of course, how we moved from there, and then we have LinkedIn. And today it's so important to have a LinkedIn profile if you really want to be out there in network. But yes, the thing is that networking, I think, changed a little bit for me and became more meaningful when I started realizing that you've got to do it with a little bit of purpose. It's just not about collecting names or adding likes or connects on your LinkedIn profile or any profile. And networking also for me became an opportunity of, it can come anytime. And like this session itself, while functionally we're learning about networking, but if you actually go to see, we all have a common cause here, because besides wanting to know what is networking, if you go a little deeper, all of us over here have decided to spend 1.5 hours. Maybe it's because we want to help somebody really grow in their development. Maybe we want to invest in ourselves. It's also just, we all come from maybe the background that we just want to hear what other people do. So on that note, I'm very happy to introduce my 3 panelists and guest experts today. The first one is Jayashri Kulkarni. Jayashri is the business unit lead and market access at Janssen India. She's a very experienced professional, and she's worked in the sectors as pharmaceutical, biotechnology, healthcare devices. And she's also been she's very multifaceted because she's been through various roles and functions like consulting strategy, business development, alliance management. Jayashri, if I was networking with you, I would ask you what that really means, and data analytics and business model innovation. So welcome, Jayashri. And then we have with us, we have Bhuvana Subramanyan, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of Randstad India. Um, Bhuvana has worked with leading organizations over her span of over 20 years of her career, such as Broadcom, IBM, Aptech, and Vijay TV. And she's also been a part of many award-winning marketing and advertising campaigns. So welcome, Bhuvana. And then we also have with us Aparna Pathak, who's the diversity and inclusion and equity leader at Novartis. Um, Aparna has again 2 decades of experience, and she also has she says she has a curious mindset, which actually says was one of the reasons that she started out with the Indian um, armed forces, the Indian Air Force, and she was a part of the first batch of women who were in the meteorological branch. So, as you can see, we have a very diverse panel here, and we, without a doubt, know that we'll have many interesting insights and experiences from all of them. So we'll get started. Shreya, can you spotlight all of us, please?
Yes, I'll just do that. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So getting into the discussion, Aparna, I'd like to start with you. What really does conscious networking mean to Aparna?
Okay, so I think I'll start off with this expression. I mean, we all talk about network, right? Now, what is it, network? So for example, if you go to any remote place, we start looking, I think there's no network, or how are we going to talk to people, right? So it is all about connections, right? So, and that is where, now when you feel you don't have a network connection somewhere, you feel that, you are, you're all alone. Now, with that in mind, for me, conscious network means being aware of why you're connecting with somebody, right? And it could be different for different people. So first of all, being aware of why you're connecting, understanding that, is it something, am I connecting with this person because I like this person? Or is it something that I will learn from this? And this is where I'm making the connection, right? And this is like, I'm going to say that if I am to make this connection, what is it that I'm going to learn? Or what is it that I can leverage? Or if somebody else is coming and making this connection, you would be saying that, okay, it's a good way to know somebody in a different perspective that they will be bringing in. So for me, conscious networking would mean that, you being aware of the purpose of the connection. And that is very important because it needs to align with what you want from that connection, right? So this is something that that's how I would look at it.
Thank you, Aparna. And Jayashri, over to you. What does networking, and now that we've added that dimension of conscious, what does it mean for you, and how does it come to life?
Sure. First of all, really happy to be here. And while you're saying that all of us have invested 1.5 hours this Saturday morning, I think it's going to go like that, considering the diverse people that we have here. So really looking forward to conversation. I think conscious networking is very well articulated by Aparna when she says that, it has to have meaning. And I was, I was relating to what you were also saying earlier. When we were introduced to networking from a professional sense, it was all about try and meet as many people. But over the years, what I have realized, thanks to some great words of wisdom from mentors, is what do you see in that interaction? And I think more importantly, how do you balance what you are going to get versus what you are willing to offer or what you can offer into that conversation? So I think being very, very mindful of what is that exchange that's going to happen in the conversation. How does that identify with what you want to do in life, professionally or personally, is what gets distilled into conscious networking for me.
Thank you, Jayashri. And Bhuvana, for you, what does networking mean?
Sure. Thanks, Charu, for having me here. I'm very happy to be here along with the fellow panelists. And yeah, to me, it is over and above what they've just mentioned. It's about improving the social being we are, right? Like as human beings, what do you want to improve? You're constantly looking at what can we improve, how better can we be every day. So networking is about learning and, changing your perceptions, or, looking for other perceptions or perspectives in life. And it's also about, consciously choosing the people I want to give and take. And to me, it has always been a long-term investment. And, it's not just one interaction and then you're saying bye. That doesn't amount to networking. It's just a meeting or it's just a party or whatever that is. So it could be like, I can completely relate to what you said. Like in the initial years, I can share my own experiences. I was very shy. Even though I was always in communications and marketing, and people used to, like my friends used to always ask me, like, you're in this profession where you need to be an extrovert and you're an introvert. But for me, it was always about that smaller circle who I could relate to, right? So I started breaking it down, because earlier it was about, what do I speak? Will I make a mistake? And you had mentioned you would be thrown at the deep end of the pool, meeting these very big industrialists or big CEOs. And, at that time, I'm saying when you just get started and you're meeting these big guys, you're wondering what you say will make an impression, because you're going with that thought. Later, when I started breaking it down, as to what do I want to, like, I just want to learn from them. Like I'm saying, that was one purpose. Then it became easier for me to go and approach them and say, oh, I read, and I also used to go prepared for that interaction, right? I would read up about them, I would understand something, or if there was a common, area of interest, then I would start with those conversations. And I think, for the benefit of people are listening, it's also, I was reading somewhere, this is also about the human tendency to not be able to retain a network beyond 150. It's called the Dunbar number or something. So it's not more than 150 people in your connect. So I've always gone by that. And, for me, two things that have always worked for me is, from a conscious networking perspective, is to be in even when I read books, I choose different books based on my mood, right? And based on the requirement. So networking also is a formula that I apply, similar formula that I apply to let's say my school alumni or my college alumni is a place where I feel very comfortable. I kind of, there's a lot of commonality, right? So that's one way of looking at networking, where you're comfortable, you can be yourself, true self, and you're able to converse anything. The other networking, which is off late in the last 10 years that I've looked at, is the women network, right? Like Shenomics or, the other networks that I'm part of, where it has helped me about, on the personal growth. And also about at a stage, you're in a stage where you're also able to give back and enable others. So I choose these kind of networks. So this is like really been, on top of my awareness, and therefore I've kind of chosen these kind of networks. And that's what it's about, improving my social being. It is about sharing knowledge. It's about those opportunities that you create for yourself and for others as well, or those connections that you create for life. That's what conscious networking needs to be.
So Charu, if I may add something.
Of course,
Okay.
sure.
So, very interesting, because and as I was reflecting, for this session, as well as when I have gone and ahead and attended webinars where, to improve networking as such, because, my career started in, it was not in the corporate, it was with the armed forces. And there, everybody, you are in a campus, or the camp, the station or whatever, and everybody, right? Everybody is your neighbor. You go to office, you know your people there, and there's nothing that you need to do, kind of create a network as such, because these are the people. Yes, of course, you will be close to certain people. You will be reaching out to more people. Some of them where you really feel that, you will learn something. But, that time there was this consciousness was not that this is what is that we will get something out of it, or somebody else will, kind of really benefit for this. So I think that is where it becomes very important that, what is the context that you are in, and, what is the context that you're trying to solve for. So being in the armed forces, being in a very small community at that, in that particular place, you really don't interact beyond, and most of the places, would be very remote areas. We will not be in, in cities where you have an opportunity to go out and meet people outside of your, field of interest. So that time there was this, I mean, there was no concept of that this is something that we are going to do. But then when I joined, when I came out of Air Force and I went back and did my MBA, and that is when people started talking, and that is where I learned what is networking and what all of these things is there. But to Bhuvana's point, it's actually as you grow in your both personal and professional life, you realize that you get a lot of this LinkedIn requests, etc., and most of the time you accept it. You also think that yeah, but how am I going to help this person, or what is it that the person how can I work with this person or really learn about it? So it is about and I think I didn't know about this Dunbar number or something, but Bhuvana, very it was a good learning for me as well, that yes, actually when you see, you actually go back to the same people, same set of people. There's a super set of people whom you will be kind of leveraging most of the time. And that is where you have to be very conscious when you're making your network, that what is it that I'm trying to get out of it, or what is it that I can offer. So as you grow, Bhuvana was mentioning that getting into women's network, etc., where you can share your perspective, especially in fields which are not so common, right? Whether it is tech or even looking at marketing and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's something that I kind of wanted to add to what Bhuvana and Jayashri mentioned.
Great. Okay, yeah. So, there's so much that has come through these, we've just started out, and there's so much that has gone beyond that, what we've already discussed, like, also as a panel that we'll cover, because, through all the responses you see, right, there's an element where we all agree that, a network happens when you have the connect. So there either you put it out by intent, or it just happens on the go, that you have those opportunities, and then you take that opportunity and you start networking. And actually, the other day or something, we were talking about that the way we network also is so much to do with our social fabric or just our circumstances. Like if you actually see, if I look at my parents' generation, networking happened for them as it is because they lived in joint families, so you always had that support system, or those connects ki, bhabhi ki nand, and somebody, they already had that big huge ecosystem going. Whereas now, as we started moving out, living on our own or in smaller families, we're building that network or ecosystem for ourselves, right? And now that we have to do it more intently, I may say, right, there are all these personal characteristics that also come to the fore. Like, Bhuvana, you said you weren't like you were shy, but then later on, as you got the confidence, you got better at it, right? A lot of people can also be awkward with striking in, conversations. Like I know that while I may come across as very chatty and talkative, and I can strike a conversation, sometimes if I feel that I don't have enough knowledge, I can get very awkward. And I've actually been in a situation where I've cracked, you try to break the ice with humor, but sometimes that also falls flat, and when it falls flat, then it inhibits you more than trying to take that one step forward again, right? Or even on LinkedIn, sometimes I've heard so many people say, we've tried to connect with them 3-4 times, there's no response, right? So Aparna, with so many elements to actually being able to network in a sustainable manner, and no matter who you are, right? Is networking really for all of us, or do you need to first develop those characteristics to actually be able to go out there and network?
See, networking is required for everybody, right? But the thing is how and what and how much is totally dependent on the person, right? It cannot be that, the way I network would be the way Jayashri networks or Bhuvana networks or you yourself will network. So it's going to be totally different. And as you mentioned, that some people are extrovert, some people are introvert, and some people, even though they are extrovert in a particular group, right? They may not be like that with everybody, right? So what you will have to think of is that, how is the way that I will network. Obviously, there are multiple platforms, with social media coming in, there is a big way to connect with people, see what they're talking about, whether that interests you or not. Many a times the way I would have networked with or made a new connection would be that I would be in some webinar and I really liked the way the person was speaking, and then or the points that they were bringing, and this is where I would reach out to them and say that, this is where I would personalize a bit, saying that this is what I really liked and would like to be part of your network, etc. So one is obviously the social media aspect. The other piece is that, it is not a one-time work, right? So you made the connection, and I'll tell you, I was also guilty of this, that, I made the connection, but I have not really nurtured those connections. And that could be for multiple reasons, that, you have so many connections, you really have to go through with whom you really want to kind of take the conversations, because quite a few of them you have made the connection, and quite a few that, people have reached out to you and made the connection. So you will have to think that, you will have to take stock of the network that you have, and then you realize that, what is it that you want to do with the network, what is it that you require of that particular network. So one is that. The other way outside of social media is that, you can always have, you go to these conferences, etc., or you go to these webinars where you can meet people, and many of these virtual conferences do also have networking session where you go. And I'll tell you, I'm also guilty of same. I have skipped quite a few of the virtual online networking sessions. This is part of the conferences. So that is another way that, you can really do it. And, in conferences, the way I would do the networking would be that, you sit in tables. So first of all, your tables, right? And then who are the people on your table, understand where they're coming from. And then if required, nowadays, I don't even carry a card. It is always a LinkedIn profile that you say that, this is my LinkedIn profile, please, we can connect there. So one is that. So this is where you can do it. The other way is that, identify what you need. And that is where the consciousness comes in, that, what you need from the network. Is it that, you want to show that, I have so many connections? And, I'll be very proud of it that, I have, 10,000 connections and, there are so many people are following me. Or is it that, you are genuinely interested to get something out of the network? And, as women, and I can tell this for myself, I don't know about others, but I might know this person really well, and I have this network, but, I'm not very effective in kind of leveraging the network, in the sense that I feel that if I ask for something, is it that I'm taking advantage of this particular relationship that I have? So we tend to kind of self-censor a bit, saying that, should I really reach out and ask that, do you have something around this or something, especially if you're looking out for for a job or something like that. You feel that, okay, this person will say that, you did not reach out to me for anything else, now you want to reach out for some kind of an opportunity or something like that. So then that is your style, that, you feel that you are kind of taking advantage of this particular relationship. So you will have to think. And I really like this topic of conscious networking, because we do quite a lot of it unconsciously. We just, someone sends a request, you kind of accept it, or you have made the connections, but you have really not made the follow-up conversations and not nurtured it. And it could be that your style is that, you will only talk to few people and, leverage some of those, but realize what your style is, and that will help you with your networking.
Thanks, Aparna. And just a little more, because you've been in fairly male-dominated industries. Yeah. So anything that you feel that really, that you brought to the fore, which helped you kind of network better or build those relationships? You're on mute, Aparna.
Apologies for that. So I think, so if I talked about in the Air Force, and very interestingly, I used to be the meteorological officer, which is that I used to focus weather for the pilots. And since I was the first batch of women officers there, when I used to go and brief the pilot, I was in a room which was full of men, because that time we didn't have women, as women joined after after our batch in the Air Force. So I was in this room, which was full of men. And to be frank, I didn't feel conscious, and I never realized my gender as a identity would have a kind of an impact. And that could be because we were trained along with our course mates who were men, right? We were men and women who were trained together. So that and we were doing everything as the the guys were doing. So it was. The training was not special that, you are a woman, so your physical capacity is this or something like that. But the classes, the academic section, or whether it is the sports and the marching and everything, we would be together. So we were all in the same flight that we used to call that group of people marching along. So it was all, we were doing it together, right? So I never felt that thing that, this is something that, and then as you grow, you become very confident in your in your abilities, and then you feel that it doesn't matter. So it is over a period of time you start thinking that, why did this not come into me, or something like that. That is when you think that maybe because they don't see me as equal or something like that. That might come in later, but at the beginning it never did come to me that, I'm a bit different, or because I knew that I was there for my ability, and not that, I've been just hired and doing this particular job. So yeah.
Right. Thank you. So, Jayashri, it would be great to get your inputs, because like Aparna just spoke about, how while we're networking, a lot of, we do face a lot of, so we're saying let's consciously network, right? But the flip side of consciously or thinking through something is then it also, those you have the little devils that start creeping up, right? And while women are known to be very social, like we have a huge bunch of friends, but it's actually the men who are known to be better at networking, right? So it's a bit of a dilemma. And so what in your view is, how how do we really go out there and network with so much of unconscious bias, personal bias? There is also microaggression that exists in our world, corporate world, personal world. So how do we navigate through it? Any insight, any examples?
Sure, it's an interesting statement. In fact, I would say otherwise, that women are much, much better in creating networks. And we don't realize that. Each one of us in our own personal space would have a network of friends, of people who we can reach out to, that, today this is not working in my system. Can you help? And somebody will. So there is so much more that we have, whether it is, even doing an emergency grocery shopping for somebody. I mean, there are so many of these personal networks that we're so skilled at in creating. And I think somewhere we leave that strength out when we start thinking of professionals and say that men are better networkers. And I would challenge that, because inherently we do that. We do that so unconsciously that we don't realize it's a strength. In terms of biases, I think you're absolutely right. There are external and internal, I mean, our own biases and what we see in terms of stereotyping. And one thing which has worked for me very well is the ability to really voice out what you're thinking. And doing it the first time becomes very, very challenging. But like Aparna was saying, as you grow in your profession, it becomes easier. And I'll give you one example. So this is 1999. I joined into an organization as a sales representative outside of my own home state, going into another city with a different culture, different language that was spoken, and one of 30 men in the sales team. And we are sitting and doing a review of how we will plan for delivery of that quarter target. And you would have a usual agenda that's going through, right? And there would be these 30-minute sessions and then 5-minute breaks that are happening. All the men would go out, have their chai and have their cigarette, and then come back. And I sat through it for the first day, and I felt really, uncomfortable as to what's happening. When I figured that out, and when I said, "Hey guys, when you're going out, maybe one of the breaks can be without cigarette. Let's have chai together. I don't mind coming with you. And let's talk about how this business is. Tell me more about the characteristics of this territory." So I think being able to speak up not only helped me say I'm okay to sit with you guys and converse, but for them, it kind of brought down the barrier, saying, "Isko chai ke tapri pe kaise le jaएं? Will she be uncomfortable?" So, and that created probably one of the strongest bonds with that team. So much so that even now, if I go to that city, there's always somebody who will say, "Hey, come, let's meet for, chai, coffee, or drinks or whatever." So I think that is one thing which I would urge everyone to start thinking about. Don't second guess either yourself or the person that you're trying to connect with. And you'll be surprised with the kind of responses you get. So this was like 24 years back, but I'll give you a more recent example, where as part of my own development process, I was challenged by my manager saying, "How are you going to build a network of very senior leaders in your organization that are going to help you build and refine your purpose, your own personal and professional purpose, and how that connects to what you do on a daily basis?" And this network is not mentors, but this is a network that will give you very unbiased feedback. Again, the same inhibition, right? How will I go to the head of European operations and have a conversation at random? So in such times, I think, and there is a lot of relevant comments in the chat as well. I think building a context for the person that you're connecting with, saying, "Hey, these are things that I'd love to hear from you, and here is the reason why I'm reaching out to you." And the responses that I got was amazing, because not only was I able to connect with senior leadership in my own sector, which is the pharmaceutical sector now, but even beyond. And there is so much expertise that people are willing to give that it makes the whole process very, very easy. So I think I'll summarize in terms of saying not to second guess yourself and the people that you're really wanting to talk to. And while there is bias and there is microaggression, I think sometimes the assumptions and the myths get broken when you reach out and people understand what you're doing, why you're doing. So those should always be the anchor before saying, "Oh, I won't go for this cocktail," or "I will hesitate requesting this network to change the date or the venue because I'm not comfortable." People are willing to adjust sometimes.
Right. And just one more thing I want to add is of course, like it's so evident that one is like not second guess yourself. The second thing that I think which is very clearly coming through is also transparency, right?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, the max that can happen is the person will say, "I'm sorry, I can't help you," and it's that's where you have to build your maturity to say, if people can help, they'll help, and if they don't help, you don't take it personally, right? But there are still many people that I've seen in my just personal or career circle that they are so inhibited because they're quiet. It's not like they don't have the knowledge, they just don't think, they don't have that voice, right? What is your what would you say to them, that how do we find our voice? We all have a voice, right? So how do we get around that?
I think one of the things which has personally worked for me also is that, for example, I'm part of this conversation and I'm hearing Aparna speak, Bhuvana speak, you speak, and I'm seeing Indranila, Vidya, all of them chatting here. Now, one approach could be, yes, I feel inhibited speaking out in a larger audience, but can I, for example, pick up something that somebody is talking about and build on it and have a one-on-one conversation? That sets a context that allows me to have a safe space of one-on-one interaction, which is relatively less daunting than speaking in front of 20 people, and use that probably as an anchor to practice conversations. I think the biggest advantage in today's era is that there is so much possibility of interacting virtually. That gives us probably a lot more psychological safety than sitting in front of a person and that person really being able to pick up everything that you've not said and said. So that also is something that we should probably think about leveraging more. It also gives us the freedom of not having to plan for commute, convenient place, time, etc. Right? So there are so many of these small little advantages that we can pick up. But I think to the point that I said earlier, what can I pick up from a larger event or a bigger conversation and say, hey, this resonates with me more, and I want to talk to this person and start having a conversation. And using that to then do much broader networking would be something that I would say worked for me and worth actually trying to do.
Right. Okay. And I would really like to say over here that being quiet, like this is the platform where we actually break that myth. Being quiet is not a bad thing. You actually, people who are, quiet, synonymous, shy is a different thing. But if you're quiet, you can actually network really well because you become a really good listener. And
Absolutely.
that's a huge virtue to have when you're networking. Yeah. So
Just one
that,
more point that I would say,
sure.
Charu, to the people here and the women here is that fortunately for us, as we've seen evolution of workplaces, the traditional stereotype of what an experienced professional or a leader should be, right? Who is somebody who's very flamboyant, can stand on a stage, exude executive presence, thump his or her chest and make really inspiring speeches. That's kind of being moderated a lot. So people are comfortable opening up with vulnerabilities. People are comfortable saying, hey, I'm an introvert, but I'm leading a 1,000 crore business. It's difficult for me to network, but I'm doing this because there's a common purpose. And there's a lot more acceptance to that. And I think it's time that all of us are able to leverage that a bit more and feel comfortable reaching out to, strangers, but investing for the longer term and not making it very transactional.
Sure. And breaking our own biases. Yeah. So I hope today a lot of us are going to make that commitment that we're going to break our own stereotypes. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Jayashri. Bhuvana, over to you. So we've spoken so much, we've spoken so far about, you know, um, the inherent characteristics of a person, of women, what is conscious networking. I'm a huge believer that networking is important to whatever extent you want to define your network, 150 or even 10. Yeah. But yet it's very important to network for your career growth. Yeah. And what are your views about that? And especially, and we've touched upon it a little bit, but if we can go a little bit more in depth, because now what we're seeing is we're actually living in a hybrid world, right? Where there is now opportunity to live in person, but people don't want to be in person. They want to see you virtually. Yeah. So what are your views about that, and any
Sure,
insight
sure,
there?
Charu. I think, yeah, I mean, career growth or career advice is definitely one of the reasons, one of the key reasons people even choose to network. I mean, especially when you've chosen to work, right? So it's clearly, what are you expecting when you're looking at career growth? You're looking at either, some advice when it comes to your own path that you're taking, or you're looking at, is there any other skilling that you need to grow, or you're looking at knowledge sharing. Like if you already, it could be at the same level, it could be like, I mean, there is reverse mentoring that is happening in many organizations today, where you're learning that the older generation is learning from the younger generation on, let's say, the social skills and understanding how Gen Z works, and on social media skills and all of that as well. It could also be about access to job opportunities or career advancement itself. When you reach a particular stage, it could also be about finding clients or making those, the understanding if they could become your client or you could offer your services to them. So like a spectrum of things when it comes to career growth itself. So you, again, conscious networking is about choosing that purpose of what you want to, gain out of this and what path of career growth are you looking at. And to me, what has happened over the years is I have met people at various professional levels, right? From juniors to the top guys across industries. So that can, and sometimes it becomes very difficult to have access, especially to the higher ups. So that when you have those opportunities, when you have those external events to go to, or even on a hybrid level, right? I would say attend those. At least then you're able to have that connect, saying we met at this event, I was part of this event, you spoke this, right? You always need that one or two things that you want to make that connect. And people, you need to be relatable. Like, it's just sending your connection over LinkedIn doesn't mean anything today, especially in the virtual world. It's just one more connection, right? If you're able to establish that one point of commonality, you're able to have that conversation saying that, or you're at least going and checking out, make some effort in checking out if there is common, network, that, people who are in the same circle, or you're part of the same. For me, it's about being part of CMO networks, for example, right? So then there is so much more conversation that I can bring to the table, or being part of the women network. So there is like conversations around like how is ED&I treated in your organization? I'm just saying like examples, right? So it is about career growth for you. If it is about accessing, getting access to the wisdom or career advice that is key to your future growth, then you have to network. You have to make that effort. You have to put in the time and energy, and please ensure you have this very large awareness that it's a two-way street. Don't just go with a very utilitarian, kind of, you're not just going there to get something. You should also be able to give back something. And largely, when you look at mentors or sponsors that you're approaching, what are they expecting? They're expecting your focus. They're expecting you to be there on time, like very small things, right? They're expecting you to come prepared for that meeting. You can't go to, let's say, a one-on-one. I mentored women, like at least 6 women throughout the year, Charu. And the things that I expect is come prepared for that conversation. Come prepared with at least a thought in your mind as to what do you want to get out of this relationship. You can't go to a meeting and say, I don't know what I want, right? It's okay to say that in the beginning. I'm saying you can still work it out with your mentor and create that path, but you be clear that you don't know what you want, right? Or you say, this is what I want to get. Any relationship for that matter, right, Charu, you have to know what you want out of that relationship. So it applies to your network as well, right? And you need to also think about, how do you make this feel reciprocal actually? And it could just be simply providing feedback, or even saying thank you over a mail after the interaction is done. So, and how do you contribute to the whole thing? And that's where the whole conversation, and especially when it comes to career, and this is something I have gone through in my career growth as well. You sit down and say, these are the areas I'm interested in. What are the skill gaps? What do I need to learn more to gain, to get to that next position? How long should I work for to get to that next position? So that's the homework you do. And then you broaden your reach with this network that you're creating. And it's okay to kind of have more than, let's say, one mentor or one sponsor at a time. It's okay to get that different perspectives from different people, right? You need to have that perspective. In fact, I would advise, don't be part of just one network that you're very comfortable with. Don't put yourself in that box, because then your thoughts and your perspectives start to get skewed with that particular set of people alone. Put yourself into different groups, understand what each one's thoughts are around your career. I have had opportunities where I've spoken about, marketing. And then I have heard people in my CMO group itself talking about very different thinking about marketing itself. I mean, I've heard them come with uh, using of different technologies, for example, which I may or may not be aware of. You're not going to get exposed to everything in the world, even if you're a CMO, right? So when you're talking to them, you get to understand different things that they are doing in their industry. There is so much to learn from and apply in your organization or apply in your work also, right? So it also, when I network, it reminds me also of how far women have come in their own career path. What have they done to kind of get there from where they were? Like, I mean, we just heard Jayashri and Aparna talk as well, like what they have done, like, very male oriented, paths that they've taken. Jayashri had her own Rachel moment from Friends of men going away to smoke. And how do you really break those moments and then you create your path for yourself? How do you stand out, right? That's what people are looking for at the end of the day. What is it that you bring to the table when it comes to your career? What is your differentiation that you want? Everybody can't be different, but what is it that you're willing to bring? How far are you going to invest in yourself to develop and improve your skill set? And how are you staying on top of the latest trends in your industry? Or it also helps you keep a pulse on the job itself, right? And I think Jayashri just alluded to, reaching out to a network within the organization also. It's the easiest network you can create, right? It's because you're there. There are people there. They know you. You all have working towards one organizational purpose. So it's easier to at least reach out, try it out, right? At the most, I think you said this, Charu, at the most, they're going to say they're busy or they can't or they're not interested. That's all it is. It's okay. Don't take it personally, right? It's because they may not be in a space to engage with you at that point in time. They may not be in a space, or I think somebody had put in the chat that they may not feel that they are able to add value. That's fine. It's not your problem. There are so many people in the world. That's what we have in the world. It's the largest network in the world that we have of people, right? It's the easiest and most available resource in the world today is people. So it But when networks have been created, it kind of also sustain that. I was talking about this long-term relationship and that mutual trust that you can create that applies to your career path as well. And especially in a hybrid world, to me, it has actually made it very easier for people, especially people who are shy, who don't know how to approach, or it gives you that time and effort. And so much of internet, we didn't have this back in our day where we had to actually, you don't even have a place to go and research about the person, right? There was no LinkedIn, there was nothing for you to go and read about the person. You just had to go blind in and talk to them without understanding who they are or their persona or the personality and all of that. You have everything today in your hand. So you can craft the right message. You can avoid that small talk that you have in person. You can say, okay, you can initially talk about them, inquire, and then get to the point, because people are fine with that. People are fine with 15-minute interactions if you reach out to them saying, I just want to discuss this one thing, right? So do your research ahead of time and connect with a thoughtful and very personalized introduction and the conversation also. And to me, it is, I think I've repeated myself, but I'm going to say that again, it's definitely a source of new perspectives and ideas that can help you in your role. So exchanging that information or putting out a challenge and asking for advice, those are easier ways to network and gain from in today's world. And in fact, you won't even relate to this in this context, but I got my health correction done through a person I met through a network. And I've made so many friends through my networks also. Like today, people are, gone beyond this professional network and they become friends today and they come home and we meet out and all of that. So those are the possibilities. And therefore, when you kind of reach that space, it also makes it a lot more comfortable for you, right? So I'm just saying, do your homework, use that time effectively, be more aware of what you want out of the relationship, Charu.
Thank you. And again, like I think this has gone a little beyond networking, where there's so much emphasis on nurturing and building relationships, right? And today, there's so many ways of context. You can build context. You can actually, when you connect with a person, you can know more about them, right? I think what also came through very strongly now on what you said is a common goal. The best connects that you'll make is where there's a common goal or value that will hold that either 15-minute interaction or a 15-year interaction. um you know I just like to really emphasize over here that also we haven't asked directly, but networking is so much more than just career building, or when you're looking for your next job or next change, or for a recommendation or a reference. It is so much about your overall growth and the abundance of opportunities and the relationships that you can have. And I always, because of my work, I've had to network, or have been exposed to networks. But I always say, if anybody, we always talk about such great networks in our workspace, but has anyone ever tapped into or been a part of a road track? Like, you should see, they are world over, and they have people from all ages, all diverse backgrounds, and they are so committed to always either help a fellow Rotarian or for the causes that they work. Is because when they sign up for a Rotary, the value is that what value can we bring as an individual to another individual, right? So I think those are the kind of things that if we also develop as an individual, then there's also so much scope for payback, and that's very important for networking. And somebody had a question once that, and any of you can take it, is it wrong to network? I don't have time. That's a very common thing we hear, that I don't have time to network, whether it's online or it's offline. Between work, my personal responsibilities, and my kids, and the little me time that I get, I don't have time to network, right? But when I need a job, then I need to network. um anyone can take that up. Any of you, if you would like to take that up, what do you have to say for that?
I can go, Charu, to start with. If you're saying this, then you're not interested in yourself. That's the first point I would make. You need to invest. If you can make time for everybody else, if you can make time for everything else, then you can make time. And that's the key word. You can make time. It's not like you don't have time, right? You should, allocate. And the best way that it's worked for me again is to put it in the calendar. When you put it in the calendar, at least you're committing to yourself. And you also have the conversation with the other person and tell them that this is what I want to do. When you're in that frame of mind, then you immediately connect. Do not procrastinate about it, because when you start procrastinating, everything else becomes a priority over yourself. And this is a very woman thing, by the way. I mean, this is again another observation, that everything else is important. From your family to friends to everything, they don't mind going and doing things for everybody else, but only when it comes to themselves, it is an issue. So put it in the calendar, have the conversation. At least when you're committing to somebody else, saying that you're going to invest this time, then you are slightly better in avoiding it, or better in not rejecting yourself. Or I think Jayashri had mentioned this mostly comes from second guessing themselves, right? That's why the prioritization goes down the line also. So just put it as a commitment, kind of respect yourself and put yourself up front. Then it will happen. You will make time.
Jayashri,
And
Aparna?
yeah, and building on what Bhuvana said, I think I'll go one step further and share what I do. So I think since the past 7 or 8 years, I have without fail blocked 20 minutes on my calendar every Friday around 5 to 5:20. And that is non-negotiable. So everybody knows that that's a time where she will not be available for any call except for like really, really huge emergencies. That's the time where I have kept for either self-reflection or reaching out to somebody or answering questions that come up. And it has helped create kind of a discipline to what Bhuvana was saying. Make yourself some time. And that becomes so easy after probably 21 days, which is usually the time that you take to build a habit, that now it's unconsciously happening, and it's my time where I will decide what I want to do, either reflect or network, or just maybe read something.
Great.
Okay, so adding my perspective, I think Bhuvana very nicely put that, that means you're not prioritizing yourself, right? So this is an investment in yourself. So first of all, you have to admit to yourself whether you want to or you don't want to network, right? If you don't put that effort to build a network, you will not get the benefit of a network. So first of all, you have to admit whether you want it or don't want it. Then you look at how your day goes. What is the time that you're spending? So if I'm looking at, you say that you don't have the time, look at the time that you're spending in a day, whether it is with your family, whether it is work, whether related to family, you're doing some household work, or whether it is anything else that is it. So it is important for you to understand where you're spending the time, for you to take out that time. So I would say that rather than saying that, I will do 6 to 6:30, I will, go for my walk, come back, have, preparation for my breakfast, and then, have a cup of tea. Don't do it like that. Rather than that, say that, what is it that you are doing in the whole day? I mean, the broad parameters will help you, right? If you're getting up at 5 o'clock, what do you do? What is the time that you get available to you? So manage your time. And as both Bhuvana and Jayashri mentioned, that you have to make it a habit, and the habit will happen when you stack it on. This is a thing that I have learned from the book that I read called Atomic Habits, which is where how do you make these habits become part of atomic means that it has become so routine that you don't even think, right? You sit in the car, put on the seatbelt, switch on switch on the car and put down the handbrake. We do this all unconsciously, right? So it has to become something that becomes very part of your daily routine, right? So for example, it could be as simple as that, Friday evening, because by this time you're kind of switching off, so you might want to do that. Or if you might want to put that time around in over the weekend. So it is up to you. You decide that when you want to do that investment, right? And you have to make this expectations both with your colleagues as well as with your family, that this is the time which is kind of non-negotiable, as Jayashri kind of mentioned, right? So make that investment, and then also identify when you can do that on a regular basis. Am I there yet? No, I mean, I may not be at the same level as Bhuvana and Jayashri in terms of, making it such a great habit. But yes, I'm getting there. And as someone mentioned that, it is that also being more digital, and you don't really have to make an effort to go out, and, you don't have to invest really 1 hour that, I have to now go meet somebody for coffee or come back. That can happen once in a while, but, it's mostly now you can reach out to people beyond your city, at a click of a button, right? Which is something which is very, which will help you to reach out to people where you would not have otherwise reached out if this social media, etc. was not. So leverage the technology, leverage the tools available to you, and make it a habit, make it atomic, I would say.
Thank you. And, now we have a lot of questions pouring in. So, to keep this interactive, I know some of you have actually typed this in, but I'm actually going to call upon you so we can make this more engaging. Vidya, if you could actually unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Charu. Hi, everybody. This session was really insightful. Thank you so much. I think one specific question I had was while I was reading this book, Limitless by Radhika Gupta. She was mentioning about having a advisory board of 6 to 7 people to. It's not like having one mentor for life, but to address different aspects of our growth to have that spread. And in my recent organization, I tried asking for my manager, who's a women leader, whom I looked up to a lot. I really liked how she was handling, and for a long time, for a long time later, I realized that she was hesitant to give direct feedback. So how do we when we reach out to someone, how do we communicate that we are looking up to them, we want to get unbiased feedback, and these are the areas where we look, these are the reasons why we are reaching out, and these are the areas we want? How do we form this advisory board? What are your thoughts on that?
You want me to go? I can take that. So Vidya, I just mentioned that, it has worked for me by having more than one mentor or one sponsor at a time, because each one comes, like each of us, we come with our own strengths and weaknesses. They also come with their own strengths and weaknesses. And it's also about the time that they would like to spend on mentoring or, giving that advice. Within an organization, I can just respond to that very specifically, is it becomes a very professional space. And especially if they're, your own managers, there might be that hesitance to give you that direct feedback, because it can be misconstrued, or but if you don't say it out, I'm saying, if you have to communicate saying that you're looking for advice for this purpose, that you want to improve upon ABC things, then they might open up and talk about it, because there is a construct in an organization to give you feedback. Most of the organizations have this during your reviews or during your, annual reviews or whatever it may be, because that is something that has been defined by an organization, and the manager may or may not be seen in the right light when they're giving extra feedback, and not everybody might take it the same way that you do also, right? So it's fine to go and ask for feedback, and if they're not comfortable, it's fine. You can, communicate to them saying that this is the reason that you're asking for this feedback, because they may not know what the intent of you asking also is. And you can communicate to them that you look up to so and so person for these purposes. And if you still don't get the response, it's okay to go outside. As I said, they may not be in that headspace to be able to, each one is going through their own journey, the time that they're able to spend on others. So it's fine to go out and look at similar people, right? You can find them, and right here today, we have so many people willing to, take on giving you that kind of feedback. Or there are other networks. There's so much happening around women and career growth, or around career growth itself. So you can just reach out to any group, but be very specific on why you're asking for that feedback. And I definitely advise having more than one person as a mentor all your life, because otherwise that gets very skewed, or you start behaving like you start looking up to that one person, and you're only kind of boxing yourself into that person's thought and guidance, right? So that's my 2 bits.
Definitely.
Thanks. I'll Tanvi, I hope that answers your question. I'll go into the next one.
Sorry, just wanted to add one more thing.
Sorry, Jayashri, go ahead.
Because
Yes.
I feel it'll help a lot of us as well.
Sure.
I think one thing at a broader level, though, I'll also emphasize is that in this day and age, I see merits for us to identify our strengths or areas that we want to build, rather than asking for broad feedback on things that we want to improve. And this is something that I see women consciously doing, that I'm not good at this, or I think I'm not at par, and being very apologetic when asking feedback. Versus imagine preparing for yourself and saying, hey, these are my strengths when it comes to a people leader, for example. And here is something that I want to learn, do better. And it could be things like I want to do a better job at digital marketing, or, turning around a business. It could be anything. And using that context to go ahead and look for mentors would be far more impactful than having a very generic statement in terms of saying, hey, can you give me feedback to be a better person or grow? That's number one. Number two, I would build on what somebody else was saying earlier, is the choice of mentors, and not just going with the traditional mindset of, hey, let me look at senior leaders across my organization or outside as mentors. I personally have actually benefited by reverse mentoring, which is really connecting with the younger talent, with people in, the Gen Z and millennial population, and really learning a lot in terms of context of some of the more hardcore skill sets and strengths, and also in people leadership. So I think these two pieces become very important for us to consider. And absolutely, yes, having a group of mentors is always beneficial than just going to one.
Yeah, and I'll also add, in the advisory board, it need not just be people in your professional network. It could also be people in your personal network, right? So it could be your friends, because not only people who peer networking or peer coaching is also, pretty good, because then they can give you some of the perspective, right? So look at your peer group, see if they would like to be, in your advisory group, because they can also give you very honest inputs, right? That, what are the areas that you can focus, as well as, on the personal side, because many a times we may have a persona which is a bit different in our personal life as well versus what we have in our professional life. So we can get, it can get a bit confusing, and at times can create a bit of a conflict. So it's also good to have in your advisory board people who you kind of look up to in your personal life, as part of your advisory board as well.
Thank you all, and thank you, Vidya, for asking that question. Tanvi, can you go next?
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you all hear me? I'm sorry, I have a sore throat.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So my question is, I identify as an introvert, and I'm trying to build a digital marketing consultancy. I feel confident and I'm not shy as such, but I feel very overwhelmed and overstimulated with the fast-paced digital networking across platforms. And my work requires me to be on digital platforms. And I stay away from networking because, as it is, there's a lot of work that happens, and I'm continuously exposed to a lot of information. So my brain also then needs downtime. But I'm aware that I'm missing out on critical connections and conversations for career growth. And I'm constantly in this flux and dilemma of what should I do? What steps can I undertake as an introvert to combine my strengths, but to also meet the demands of a digitally connected world? I like networking. I want to do it on my terms, but I know that it is not possible. So I would really like some tips over here. Thank you.
So Tanvi, great question. I would say do it on your own terms. It's fine, right? It's absolutely fine to do that. So if you, I understand where you're coming from. It's very, very distractive. There's too much of distraction on the digital media today because that's all you have. You're like literally moving from one window to another window in during meetings, and it can get very, you can get bogged down by it. But choose your downtimes, right? Choose your downtimes and choose your time where you would like to network, right? On digital as well, because once it's like the Cinderella thing. it depends on how far you go and how much you go, and then you can turn back into what you are. That is one. And or it can be an Alice in Wonderland stuff. So you can choose where you want, which story you want to be part of. And going by the, the necessity to be part of, yes, it is the reality today. We'll have to accept it. If you want to expand, and especially if you're looking at, starting something like a digital, agency or digital thing, it is essential for you to be. So recognize that, accept that. And you don't have to, have like 2,000 people on your network to start this. You don't need that also. You need relevant people even on digital to, make some difference to your life, whether it is providing career advice, or it's providing clients, or whether it is providing, any other thing that is required for your business. it's only so many people who are going to help you at the end of the day, right? That's where that creating those smaller networks for yourself, or being part of groups that are more, today in LinkedIn, you have groups that are very, very relevant. They've created those, the thing of groups, right? The concept of groups. You have people with digital skills only in that group. You can be only as part of that group alone. You don't have to be part of every group that is out there. You don't have to be part of sales group or a, finance group, or, you can choose which section of people you want to connect with and who are going to make a difference to you. So choose wisely. You don't have to go down any dark path, or you don't have to go down any dark hole getting into the digital media, and because it's very addictive. It's very, very addictive. All of us know this, right? You have at least 20 windows open at any given point in time. The first thing I do when I'm like annoyed is just shut down, right? I just close all windows and then I restart, and then I open only the ones that I really require. And this is not just the beginning of your career, but it applies to all of us who have come this far as well. So you have to choose wisely, but it's okay to do it on your own terms. You take it at the pace that you're comfortable with.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanvi. And Sunena, if you could ask your question. And if Jayashri could take that one. Okay, I think she's dropped off. Geeta? All right. Who else is there? Indranila, if you could go ahead. Indranila? I don't know.
I apologize. So I do have some network issues. The voice was breaking.
No problem.
That's okay. So first of all, thanks a lot. This session was really informative. I would say I was an introvert before I attended Shenomics Leadership LLAG 2020, when I was also like very restricted, and then I got to know about many things. But one thing I would like to ask all the three panelists is, what is one advice you would give to your younger self, or something you wished you knew a little much earlier? What is that thing, like each of you? It would really help me in the place I am, because right now I feel really swarmed up and little overwhelming with all networking. But yeah, this would really help me. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
I think I would definitely identify with some of the comments here in terms of saying introvert or feeling shy about networking, because really networking, when probably I started professionally, was similar to what Charu was saying, right? Go to an event, collect as many cards, or go to an exhibition or a stall and meet at least 50 people and come back with, inputs there. And that was a very, I would say, erroneous introduction to what networking can be. And over the years, then you realize that it need not be just that, but it needs to be more quality and very conscious. So I think my first input or pearls of wisdom would be that it's not an imposition. You're not doing a favor by asking somebody to be a part of your network. And I think we have to get away from that bias, because it's an exchange that you're creating. Have an openness to create a longer, meaningful relationship. So it cannot be transactional, because you wouldn't identify yourself with it. Especially, I can tell you from my experience that when I connect with somebody, I would want to stay connected with that person, whether it is once in 3 months or once in 6 months. I would love for an interaction, whether it is 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So I think being mindful of that is something that I would also advise myself, my younger self, and saying, even if I don't have 100 people in my network, those 50 that I have, I'm always learning and contributing in an exchange that I do.
Awesome. Noted.
Thank you, Jayashri. I have a question from Debalina. Viviana, do you want to go ahead and ask a question, please?
Yeah, hi, Charu. Hi, everyone. Firstly, I would like to really thank each of the panelist members because there are a lot of messages you have passed on to us today, which is really insightful. And I am actually looking forward to connect with each one of you later for probably a small kind of, very initial, very small topics they might be for you because it's just that as Bhuvana and Jayashri also mentioned earlier, that when you go to a leader or when you go to a top management, you don't know exactly what to start the conversation with. And it so happens that we always get inspired by their works, but we don't know how they have channelized their way up there. So that's the kind of, especially what happened in my case, like this question, I think you have already answered to some of it. It so happened that even because they are so busy in their daily schedule, and probably my questions and my what do you call seniority level might not have been that to that level that they could have mentored at that point of time. And but I was really interested in certain topics. So in case if I have to suppose approach in the industry or in the market, in say in LinkedIn, if I want to connect to somebody, and if I get that similar kind of response saying that, in the sense I might not get a response also later, once I give my introduction, once I tell the topics of mine, what I want to learn. So what is the best way to approach it if you are so inspired about that person and, if you are not getting that kind of response, then how do you go about, or did you have similar kind of experience earlier?
Aparna?
Sure. So yes, it's not always that you send a request and you get it, right? So first of all, and you should be okay with it, and you can. It's not easy. You feel that you always take it personally that this person is not connecting with me, and obviously we will take it personally because it is us that we are talking about, right? So first of all, don't advise us that don't take it personally. It could be that the person. I've seen many people actually have written in the LinkedIn profile that, I would be only willing to make a connection if you really state the purpose of this connection, right? So always, I was surprised. I said, okay, let me see if this person really responds to my this thing. And I kind of made a note of this, and to be frank, that person has not yet responded. This was not somebody in India, but someone outside of India. I was really intrigued. I was in a webinar and this person was making some comments there. So I sort of, I would really like to connect with this person. Did I follow up with that person? No, I did not. I was thinking that, I'm going to impose myself on this person and may not, don't want to be very pushy. Many times people also see that, how pushy this person is, whether they really need this as well. So there's no kind of a that, if you do this, it will happen. It is because we are dealing with people will respond differently, and depending on their time as well as their the way they work. So when you're reaching out to senior people, or even if it is not senior, even if it is people that you are reaching out to, you have to be very clear, as we all discussed, that why you want to do it, and you have to state that upfront. And it could be that there is a curiosity element there, or there is an inspiration element, and or there is a learning element that is there. So I think stating your purpose or stating your intent, why you may want to make this connection and what is it that you're going to look forward to, would help at the start. And if people don't respond, that's also okay, because there are a lot of inspirational people that person.
Yes.
You can look at something similar profile as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that helps. I mean, yeah, I mean, you get really swayed away with certain kind of, that aura they have, right? Certain leaders have, and you tend to connect. I mean, you feel like connecting as they are inspiring to you. But yeah, sometimes, as you said, of course, I mean, yeah, I shouldn't be probably get stuck with one person, and probably I should move on to others.
And
I,
just to add to that, Devlina, you also will be getting requests because some people might see you as inspirational. So you also have to think when people are reaching out to you that, why is this person reaching out? So you might
Yeah.
be also doing that, right? So just think about it instead of, you know, you can influence your behavior. You cannot really influence other people's behavior. So if you're being conscious that, what is this person reaching out to me? Are you
Right.
giving the similar kind of this thing? Because people will find you inspirational. So you would be inspiring some other people and who want to connect with you. So just think of it as a different perspective that you can bring in.
Got it. Yeah,
just
sure.
wanted to add one thing,
No?
Deblina, to what
Mhm.
Aparna was saying is also that you can learn even just by following them, following what they're putting out there, and because you're already inspired by them. You don't have to
Mhm.
necessarily talk to them or engage with them like one-on-one. If that's not happening, it's still fine to,
Mhm.
learn through what they're doing, because that's what you're at the end of the day, that's what
Right.
you get out of the relationship. It may not be a
Yeah,
personal engagement, but you still can learn. So continue to be open to that.
sure. Yes. Thank you, Bhuvana. Thanks,
Thank
Aparna.
you, Devlina and Aparna and Bhuvna. And we're going to take one last question from Mamta.
Hi.
Hi, Mamta, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. It was great listening to experts. I have one question, two parts to this. The first one is there any ideal methods or principles for networking? And another one question is very commonly asked by young ladies and young women. Why should people have a forced connections, both personal and on the job? For example, both, my parents have some connections and we have been forced to have those connections. That's number one. And another one is, like your in-laws have a forced connections. So, and why, it's a very common one. Women have actually ask me how they should handle these kind of connections, including on the job, and how they should make it very subtle or very mild with these connections. Could you please help me on this?
Jayashri, can you help here? Start with you.
Sure. So to the first question, honestly, Mamta, there's no right or wrong way, correct? In terms of here is the known best method of networking. As long as it is anchored on what you want or what you're willing to offer, I think even starting from there would give you a lot many answers to questions around which groups to network with, what kind of information exchange you want to look at, and therefore move you in that direction. So somebody was earlier saying that they want to thrive in a digital marketing agency startup perspective, right? One approach could be how can I get clients and therefore I need to network. Or another approach could be I'm just starting this business. Let me talk to like-minded entrepreneurs and understand, how they have handled setting up a business and what kind of realities do we need to look at, and then set that or enter that network. So there could be multiple directions, but I think anchoring on what you really want to achieve out of it is the starting point. That's non-negotiable. On the forced networks, you still have a choice, right? We call it forced, but we still have a choice in terms of how, when, and how much we engage, right? And that's possible for us to do. So I think it's really a choice that we make, saying, do we need to be engaged with this so-called forced network on a regular cadence? Or are we comfortable talking to them purely when it's required? And I think professionally, again, it's a choice. If we have to work with this forced network on a regular basis, we really need to make that effective, right? And move forward. But if we have flexibility on, building onto the frequency of that connect, then I think we should take that. I don't think there is anything as such where you cannot make a choice in terms of saying, let me connect or let me stay back and do very infrequent interactions.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I think just I would like to actually add to Mamta's question. Harsha, can I mute you, please? Yeah, sorry. So, even where you said forced connections, actually networking is all about you. All right. There's one where, so you have to start making that distinct between relationships or acquaintances that you need as a part of your job or your personal realm. But networking is your choice and your power. All right. So start owning it. And we all sometimes have to interact with people we don't really want to, and you just do it to the bare minimum and move on. Yeah. But remember, networking is yours. So don't mix the two. Yeah. All right. So I think we are on time, and there, of course, this discussion could go on for at least a good half an hour more, but in interest of everyone's time, and our experts have already given us so much of their time, insights, experience, I'd like to thank everybody. Just one question for Aparna. Actually, no, I'm going to leave it with this group, is to, if you want to network with Aparna, Bhuvana, and Jayashri, how do we go about it, guys? I'm giving you all a window.
Well, I have already sent some message, to Bhuvana, Aparna, and I'm going to send to Jayashri also. And also I have started connecting with them, and probably my next step would be to, if we find some suitable time, I would love to talk with, each of them, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that should do, I guess, probably in this coming week. So I hope that that is the right way to go. I mean,
Yes, Devina.
try.
Good. Again, right or wrong, you made the effort. So I think a big round of applause for Devina, and I hope each one of you actually do take this opportunity, and they're all there on LinkedIn. Me being me, I'm going to say, Aparna, Jayashri, Bhuvana, is it okay if they reach out to you on email? So if you guys are okay with it, you can put out your email too on chat if you want to. Otherwise, if LinkedIn is the best way, then we know where to find you all. And yeah, and thank you once again to all our experts. We really value your support and your time and your experiences, and of course our attendees, without whom actually who actually lead to such an engaging conversation. So thank you everyone, and have a great weekend ahead and a week ahead. Yes, thank you.